In the last video, we studied the historical Stern-Gulick experiment, and now we'll study the variants of those experiments. Before that, we state the first postulate of quantum mechanics. The quantum state of any system can be mathematically represented by a normalized ket. What do we mean by ket is this symbol right here. We have a vertical bar followed by a greater than arrow, and then you use a representation for that state. Here we have used psi that represents a general state. We can use various notations and it's a matter of just convention. And this quantum state represented by a ket, it contains all the information that you can know about the state. Okay, having said this, now we'll focus on the simplified Stern-Gulick apparatus. We don't care about the intricate details of the experiment now, we'll just focus on the essential features. So we label the Stern-Gulick device by the axis along which the magnetic field gradient is set up. So in the last experiment, when we saw the historical Stern-Gulick experiment, we saw that the magnetic field gradient was set up in the z direction. So we label the Stern-Gulick device as z. Okay, now we have an input state which is a generic state represented by psi. So we call this ket psi. And now we know that for a spin half case, there are two possible outcomes. That is, when you pass this through an inhomogeneous magnetic field, you get two deflections, one upside and one downside. Okay, so there are just two possible outcomes that you can get after this SZ measurement. We label them by plus Z and minus Z. So this is ket plus C that represents the beam that goes up, and this is the ket minus C that represents the beam that goes down. So corresponding to the Z component of spin vector, its value as plus h bar by 2, and this represents to the value minus h bar by 2. Okay, so now let's understand what is this thing called observable. So observable in quantum mechanics is the quantity that you are measuring. Here what are we measuring is the Z component of spin. So we don't measure spin in general. We can never know in what particular direction the spin is pointing completely. We can just ask what is this component of spin along one particular axis. So here it's SZ. Okay. So now we study experiment 1 where we have two Stern-Gulick analyzers. We call them analyzer. We have a generic state psi which is input to this through the first analyzer. This first analyzer will just split this input beam into two parts. We get two possible outcomes of this measurement. There will be plus Z and there will be just minus Z. So when we are inputting a generic ket coming out from the oven, these are the bunch of atoms. So any particular atom, okay, it has 50% probability to be in this plus, to be of this kind. That means its spin component along Z will be pointing up, and it has 50% probability that its spin component along Z will be pointing downwards. Okay, so one point to be noted here is there is a difference between mixed states and superposition states. Here we are not saying that we are inputting 100 atoms and there are 50 up and 50 down. What we mean here is every single atom has 50% probability to be pointing in the up direction along Z and 50% probability for its spin component to be pointing down along Z. Okay, having said this, then we have this generic state psi for any atom, and then it can be split into plus C or minus C. What we have here is we block the atoms right here, the beam that comes out of this minus Z. We block this and we input only the plus C atoms and in another SC analyzer. Now the question we ask is what is the what is the proportion of atoms that you get now after passing through SZ, the second analyzer. Okay, so here you have input 100, you get 50 here, 50 here. When these 50 plus 0, they are already measured into plus Z state. We input this to another analyzer. Now what do we get? So since they have already been measured to be in plus C, there is no reason to expect that this measurement, this same measurement again, will change the state. So we expect a simple answer that this 50 which are in the up direction, yeah, they will get all 50 here in the up direction and there will be a 0 in the down direction. Okay, which is pretty straightforward and very classically intuitive. Now we look at the similar experiment, but we just change SZ to SX. So here we have magnetic field gradient set up in the X direction instead of the Z direction. So here let's see what we obtain as a final result. Again, we have a generic state input to SC. we get two possible outcomes of this measurement, plus Z and minus Z. So you have 100, suppose you have 100 atoms, you say the proportion is just 50%, here also 50%. Now you're measuring Sx, which is not Sz. Okay, so you're performing an altogether a different measurement here. Here, there is no reason to expect that all the atoms which were earlier pointing in the up direction in the z-axis should also point up in the x-axis measurement, right? So what is the general expectation we can have here? This plus c is also made up of equal proportions of plus x and minus x. That is, when you measure the spin component along x-axis, there is a 50% probability that any atom can have plus x uh, component, and it has a 50% probability that it can have a minus x component. So any atom here which has already been measured to have spin component along plus c, when you perform an Sx measurement, so it disturbs the state of the system, and now what you get is, it's no more a z measurement, it's an x measurement now. There's a 50% probability of this plus z state to be in plus x, and there's a 50% probability of this to be in the minus x state. So it gives us 25 atoms here, 25 atoms here. That means that this state in this, the atoms that are in this plus c state are equally probable to be in plus x state and equally probable to be in the minus x state. The results of this experiment are the same for any combination of two orthogonal axes of first and second analyzers. So if you have used Z and X here, you can use X and Y here, different permutations and combinations such that if they are orthogonal, we'll obtain the same results. Moving on to the third experiment. Now we have three analyzers. Okay, we have SZ, then SX, followed by again SZ. So now we input a generic state psi here, put two possible outcomes, plus Z minus Z. We block minus Z beam, we let only the plus Z beam input to the SX. Now two possible outcomes of this SX operator is plus X beam and minus X beam. Okay, so now again we block the lower beam and we just input the up beam, and then we perform the measurement of SZ again. Then we ask what is the probability that an atom will be in this state or in this state. Okay, so now let's study this experiment. Okay, so when you have input state, this state has 50% probability that it can be pointing in the up direction in Z, or it has 50% probability that it will be pointing down along Z. Okay, so if you have 200 atoms, there's 100 atoms that show up here, 100 atoms show up here. It's probabilistic. Okay. Now, if you have blocked this 100, you input these plus Z 100 atoms to Sx measurement. Like we said in experiment 2, this plus Z state is equally probable to be in plus X and equally probable to be in this minus X, right? So you have 100 atoms, the 50 of them end up in pointing up along X, 50 of them end up pointing down along X. We block the lower one. Now this 50 pointing in the plus X, we input to the SZ, right? So now classically, if we understand the experiment, since these atoms, they were once already belonging to the plus Z category. So they were all pointing up along Z, right? Then you did something along X and all, but then again you're measuring along Z. So the classically what you expect is that if they were once found to be pointing up along Z, here we should get all the atoms that point up along Z and no atom here which points down along Z. That is our classical expectation. But quantum mechanically, what do we observe here is, what we finally get is that here we get 25 atoms in pointing up in the Z direction and 25 atoms down in the Z. So earlier we had blocked all the atoms which were pointing in the downwards in the Z direction, but we somehow end up getting some atoms that are pointing down in the Z direction. So now we need to understand why is it happening. So this result actually demonstrates another key feature of quantum mechanics, and that key feature is that a measurement disturbs the system. Here, when we are measuring Sx, and then followed by again Sx, or Sc followed by Sc, like we did in experiment 1, you're performing the same measurement again, and the same measurement does not disturb the system. But if you change the operator from Sc to Sx, you are disturbing the system. So this the system forgets, or the memory it had that it once belonged to be pointing up along Z is forgotten when you perform a different measurement. Hence, when you come back to SZ, what you observe is that this plus X is equally probabilistic to be in pointing up along Z and or pointing down along Z. Okay. Now here also comes a point of compatibility and incompatibility. Sx and Sc are incompatible observables. That means that we cannot know the measured values of both simultaneously. So if you know that the value is this along Z, and then so at the same time you cannot know what is the value along X. So in other words, you can never know in what exact direction your spin vector, which lives in the Hilbert space, and it's pretty hypothetical. We can never know what exact direction it's pointing at. Okay, we can only ask what is this component along any particular axis. Okay, having said this, there are some observables, some operators that actually commute. That is, you can know their values simultaneously. But here, the measurements we are doing, Sx, Sc, or if we had Sy, any orthogonal sort of this, they are incompatible observables. So we cannot know the measured values of both simultaneously. Okay. Now let's focus on experiment 4. We have 3 variants here. Okay. So in the first variant, what we have is we block all the atoms from the low bottom of this Sx operator. Okay, that is the minus X beam, like we did in the experiment 3. Now it is the same experiment as experiment 3, but we block the upper beam. Now this is a different experiment. Now we combine these beams, both the beams, then feed it to the third analyzer SZ, and then we ask what are the outcomes of such an experiment. Okay, so here you have this input generic state, which I have not mentioned, but we have understood by now that this is generic state psi input. There are supposed 200 atoms. There's 50-50 probability to be in plus C and minus Z. So 100 atoms here, 100 atoms here. Now we said that any atom which is pointing up in the Z direction is also equally probabilistic to be pointing up or down along X direction. So these 100 atoms end up being 50 and 50. We block these 50 and we input only this 50 to SZ. These are all plus X atoms, 50 of them. Okay. So now, like we did in experiment 3, what we observed was like we get 25 and 25 here, right? Okay. Now in the second one we have blocked the upper one, but there's no reason to expect that any change should happen because they're symmetric. Okay, so if you block the bottom beam or you block the upper beam, the output that we should get should be the same, right? But now the bigger picture comes in when you observe the C part. Okay, so you have till here you have the same thing. You take only the plus Z beam and you input to the SX, then whatever you are getting out of it, okay, you don't observe it, you just feed it into SZ without disturbing. What disturbance really means we'll understand in due time, but for now we need to understand that we perform no measurement here. We don't actually see what if the atom is in plus X or if the atom is in minus X. We don't see that. We just see, yeah, we are passing it through it and we just feed the output to SZ without noting down the observations or the measurements. Okay, so here we are not disturbing the system. Then we ask what will we get after SZ measurement. Okay, so let's see, we get all 100 pointing in the up direction and no atom which are pointing down in the Z direction. So now if you see, yeah, to begin with there were no atoms which were pointing down in the Z direction. We had all atoms which were pointing in the up direction. Okay, so here it seems like the system somehow remembers what state it was in before SX measurement. So it's very much similar to experiment 1, where the difference is that here we have SX which is actually doing nothing. So key feature, the important point we note here is that if you're putting SX here such that you combine both the beams without disturbing it, so system remembers what state it was in before this measurement. So SZ remembers that it was if it was plus C, it remembers that it was in plus C, hence we get 0 atoms in the minus C direction.